And final question for today is from Mari. I'm an INFP and my husband is an ENTP. Knowing our personality types has definitely changed our relationship for the better, but there is still room for improvement. What would you say our strengths and weaknesses are as a couple? In what way do the four people within us trigger, play, and relate to one another? And how can we create a deeper and stronger connection? Okay. Well, the first thing is you are both intuitive types, so you have that in common, and you're both perceiver types, so you probably have an understanding together where, you know, you can intuit things quite easily, and you can try and perceive to see a perspective or different perspectives quite easily. Now, you're an INFP and he is an ENTP, which means that he has his main way of making decisions is by thinking, and yours is by feeling. And it is his inner parent that is inward-facing thinking, and it is your adult self that is an inward-facing feeling. So if you want to look at this from a positive perspective, which I really recommend that you do, is that you can teach him a lot about feeling and about healing and about those kinds of things. You can really teach him about the authenticity and for him to do what's right for him, and you know, those kinds of things where you really get to know yourself, because he's not naturally good at that. He has outward facing feeling in the 10-year-old inner child position. Now, the great thing about him for you is that he can teach you how to look at facts, and because his main decision maker is inward facing thinking, so which is of course all about facts and what's accurate and you know, the process rather than the outcome. And the beauty of those things, if you do kind of soften into learning from one another, is that neither one of you has what the other one has to offer. But if you get into a headbutting situation, you are likely to just talk about how things are making you feel, and he's likely to talk about how much sense what you're going through makes or doesn't make. So both of your approaches with each other's way of making, predominant way of making decisions, can actually be not understandable, because you don't share those you know, one is feeling and one is thinking, and because both of those are inward facing, you both will have a sense of self-preservation about what your point of view is. So if you get into a disagreement, it can become this power struggle about whose point of view is actually accurate, even though both of your point of view is accurate. It's just you're talking about two entirely different things. You know, you're talking about feelings and he's talking about, you know, thinking and sense, and how much sense something makes and or doesn't make. So what are your strengths as a couple is that you could actually, if you want to soften into learning from each other, you can really work on each other's shadow sides. So your husband's functions are your shadow functions, and the other way around. They're not exactly in the same order, and that gets a little bit complicated, so I don't want to get into that here in this video. You can ask me more questions about that if you want. But because you have no functions in common, what happens is you have a lot to learn from each other, and that is one of the biggest strengths, because once you learn about the functions that you don't have, as well as the functions that you do have, obviously, then you can treat any person with respect. You can get along with any person, and that in and of itself is such a big bonus in life if you're able to do that. The biggest challenge is, of course, that your main decision maker is inward facing, which means that you can get into massive power struggles about who's right and whose point of view is more valid. And it's just because you don't function. One is thinking, one is feeling. So you're just talking about two entirely different things there. So what I would say, you were asking, how can we create a deeper and softer connection? Really respect each other's strengths. I think that's important. That is going to bring you a different level of relating to each other. And also try and learn, especially with accuracy, with inward thinking with your husband, for yourself. Try and take his example of not getting bogged down by emotions so easily, and practice what it would look like for you to do that a little bit too. And then he can kind of ease into his emotions a little bit more as well. But lead by example. Don't just say, I'm doing this, so now therefore you need to do this. If they're interested in doing this kind of personal development, that's fine. But if they're not, all you got to do is just focus on yourself, do your own thing, and you'll get there. You will absolutely get there. So how you can create deeper and stronger connections, just learn from each other. Be willing to learn from each other and ask questions. Hey, how do you see this thing? How do you see that thing? Yeah. All right. So that's it for today. Thank you very much, everyone. Hey, Dana, good to see you here. Hey, Kathy. And yeah, we'll continue next week. Thank you so much for your patience. Thank you so much for your questions. It's such a pleasure to be answering them here. And yeah, I will see you next week, if not before then. Have a fantastic week, everyone, and we'll talk to you real soon. Take care.